Hi guys, Henrik Scholder here with Mechanix Menace. I'm back in the garage again doing actual physical work on the car, and today I am working on this part here of the car where the rear wheel well will meet the rocker panel. This part here, and for the first time since March 30th I will actually weld some pieces onto the chassis. So yeah, I'm excited to get going again. Let's see what we're working with here. So here we can see the different parts I will have to work with. This here is the main hoop and the rear wheel well, the rocker panel, floor cross member I think you could call it, and this tube here goes up to the rear shock mount. And although this might look a little bit strange, and partly this is due to the project having changed over the years. So the roll cage, I built this one many years ago, and at that point the intention was to keep the chassis stock, but then I changed my mind and decided to build a full tube frame. So yeah, things would probably have looked different if I had decided on building the tube frame from the get-go. But now I am working with some parts that have been built in the past and I don't want to change them. So it might not be 100% ideal, but I think the end result will be good enough. So what we can see here is this wooden template here is used to decide on the positioning and the shape of a piece of sheet metal that will connect here, which will basically be the rear part of the rocker panel, and then this will connect to these sandwich panels I have talked about earlier, which will make up the rear firewall, which in its turn also is the backrest for the seats. And I have cut away a big part of the rocker panel to enable welding of these tubes. And yesterday I seam welded all of these tubes, at least the part that will be inside of the reconstructed rocker panel. So yesterday I made this template here, and today I will cut out this sheet metal piece and hopefully tack it in place. All the sheet metal I'm using is Swedish high strength steel Docol 800 DP in this case, and it's very easy to weld. It doesn't harden when you weld it, and you can bend it in sharp radii and so on, so it's a really good steel to work with. Okay, let's get on to the next stage. So I will start by cutting a piece of sheet metal out for this part here. So I just roughly marked how big it's going to be, and then I am going to cut it out with my trusty little angle grinder. Hope I'm not on fire. Yeah, so here we have the piece, and next step is to scribe the lines according to the template and cut it to shape. So I have lined up the bottom part of the template here exactly with the straight edge of the piece of sheet metal. I have left a little extra room here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scribe this line here, which is the intersection with the rear part of the rocker panel, and then I'm going to scribe the cutout for that transverse tube. I'm going to leave the upper part extra large to start with, and I will cut that to size later. Here I will have to be a little bit careful because I've used tape to get the exact fit to the tube. In the end, when I cut this, I will do it incrementally to kind of sneak up on the final shape. Okay, that's it. Next part or next step is to cut it out. So for this straight cut, I will use my sheet metal bench shear, and I will cut this part out in increments to lessen the risk of the main part bending. It looks fairly straight. And this part I will again cut out with my angle grinder. Okay, so now this is rough cut. I have left a little margin to the line. I'm gonna check how it fits on the car, and I will make the final fine-tuning probably with the file. So let's check how it fits on the car. Oops. Yeah, if I put a light behind it, you can see there is a gap between the sheet metal and the square tube beneath. So I need to continue filing the round opening for the tube. I can check with this tube here, and you can see where the shape is not really conforming to the tube. Okay, that's the first step. Need some more filing. Let's see how this fits. Okay, so this is where I ended up after some more cutting, grinding, sharing and filing. And yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the fit. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. If I put a light here behind it, I think maybe you can see that not huge gaps, maybe a little bit too much against the round tube here, but it's totally possible to weld that up without any problems. So yeah, that's what I ended up with. One little part of this whole intersection between rocker panel and rear wheel well. In total, including all the setting up of the camera and filming and shooting and so on, this took a little less than 2 hours. Not too shabby, but now it's time for some coffee, and then I'll get back down here in the garage. So what I'm about to do now is I am going to use my crossline laser to make a vertical reference line for the back part of this piece of sheet metal that you just saw. I have marked out the bottom of it here, which is in line with the square tube inside of the rocker panel, and now using the laser I will see to that this gets perfectly vertical. So I'm going to tap the laser to make the line up with my little scribe mark here, and then I'm going to scribe the top part, and I'm going to draw a line which then will be perfectly vertical. The line just went invisible, so I need to move it a little bit inwards. Not anymore. Okay, now let's see. Close, but no cigar. Okay, there we go. Shut the laser off and get my ruler. So now I have my vertical line here, which will guide the orientation of the back end of this piece of sheet metal. If we look here at the main hoop, there's a little piece of sheet metal here, which used to connect this tube to the stock rocker panel. I have left this in here, and I don't think it's necessary, but since I have it, I will connect it to the inside of the rocker panel, that piece I just made, with this little piece of sheet metal. And if you look here, it will need to be angled or actually twisted to connect to both sides. So I have started twisting it, and I will continue to get the correct shape of it. So to twist this little piece of sheet metal, I'm using my vise and a big adjustable wrench, or I guess monkey wrench, and I will just twist it like this. Maybe that's enough. It wasn't. It needs some more twisting. So I will need to do some grinding to get the final shape of this piece. See what that looks like. So now I have mocked up the two pieces and they fit pretty well. So next step is to tack the pieces in place. So now I have clamped and taped the two pieces in place, and the next step is to start tack welding them. Okie dokie, now it's time to start tacking. Got me amps a bit. So now I have tacked the pieces in place, and also I have seam welded the front end here in order to make warpage to minimum. The welds are not super duper nice, but at least I did get full penetration. So next step is to take this template away in order to be able to weld these two parts together without burning the wood up completely. So here's that jig piece, and as you can see there are a lot of cutouts. One is for this tube here, that one, and these two cutouts here are for the chassis jig. So this took quite some time to manufacture, especially for this first side when I didn't exactly know how to go about it. Of course the second side was much quicker. So now I have access to the rear part of these two sheet metal pieces, and I can weld them together. I think I may only tack them now for today, and I think I will be satisfied with today's work. Yeah, that'll have to do for today. Yeah, so I think maybe the next thing is I will show you what this looked like before I started planning for the tube chassis, and also I will show you a little bit in the CAD model how it will hopefully end up. Let's have a look at that. So before we look at that, let's just have a look at how this turned out when I finished welding it up as far as I wanted for today. If you look from the top, maybe you can see that the top part here is a little wiggly, but I'll straighten that one out when I weld the top onto this. So that's what it looks like. This is from the rear. It's kind of hard to figure out how this is going to look when it's finished, but yeah, we will see that hopefully in the not too distant future. So let's have a look at how the car looked before I decided on building a full tube chassis for it. So this part here is what I have been working on, and here is the rocker panel, and here is the main hoop, or what makes up the B pillar. As you can see, this tube is actually welded between the outer sheet metal and this inner sheet metal here. And here is the little piece of sheet metal that used to connect the roll bar tube or the roll cage tube to the inside of the rocker panel. And now I have cut basically everything away except for the tube itself and this piece of sheet metal. And as you can see, I cut off quite a bit of the rocker panel as well. So here's how it looked from the front. I also welded on a spherically shaped piece of steel at the bottom of the tube. So this was supposed to be a jacking point. I think if I lifted it here, I would lift the entire side of the car. I will do something similar now with a full tube frame as well. And you can also see how I cut away the fender lip and basically raised the wheel well as much as possible. And at that point, I was going to use big fender flares, but the rest of the body was going to stay stock, or at least the sheet metal sides of the body. Here's a view from behind, and another one from the front. And also you can see here that the tube here from the roll cage is actually not visible. It's sitting, like I said, between the inner and the outer sheet metal. So I had to cut a big opening here in the B pillar to enable me to put the tube in and weld it in place. This was quite a lot of work, and now I have thrown it all away, but that's how it goes. Okay, let's look at the CAD model to see how things will be. So this is the CAD model, or at least parts of it. I'm not showing everything. And as you can see from this nice man standing here beside the car, that it will be quite low. Yep. Let's take some stuff away so we get access to the chassis. Let's get rid of the standing guy and the body. Here you can see the driving position, and you can also see the seats that I have spoken about previously that actually are integrated with the floor and this rear firewall here. Since the car is so low, I basically have to sit directly on the floor. Of course, there will be padding, but there will be no actual seats. And we can have a look at some other stuff. Here in the front, you see the front pushrod suspension with Öhlins shock absorbers. This here is a hydraulic lifter, so I will be able to raise the car when driving over speed bumps and other obstacles. And if we look from the top like this, you can maybe imagine that it's kind of hard to put the engine and transmission in from above due to these two tubes here, but they are quite important in order to make the chassis as torsionally stiff as possible. So what I will do is I have a detachable plate here below the engine and transmission, and there's also a an engine mount cross member that's not shown here, so I will be able to mount the engine and transmission from below. A little bit complicated, but the chassis will be much stronger and stiffer. And here we can see the rear suspension also of the pushrod type. And here we can have a look at the rocker panel and rear wheel well. So yeah, let's do it like this. I will open the tube frame model to enable us to take stuff away and look at everything. So this part here is the stock rocker panel, the one that I have been working on now. And this is an additional part that I will weld on. This will increase stiffness and strength. This will also be filled with aluminum honeycomb inside, further increasing stiffness and strength. And of course, this will be quite good for crash safety. I'm kind of big on that, so this will be good if you're in a side impact, but of course it will also stiffen up the whole driver compartment in a head-on collision. And then there will be an upper part here welded onto this part going up towards the rear part of the chassis, so this will kind of tie everything together here, further strengthening and stiffening everything. So if we take these parts away, okay, you see here the new upper part of the rocker panel will also be welded onto the rear wheel well. Of course, these parts will be cut away. So if we take this away, this is basically what I have been working on, what you have been seeing down in the garage. So the last like 8 inches or so of this rocker panel doesn't exist, and that's what I'm building up again. So what you saw me working on in the garage was basically the last piece here, and this is one of those composite panels that I will use in a lot of places. And the template, the wooden template that I had, is what will basically position this piece of sheet metal in the chassis. Okay, I think that's everything for now. So this will be my last post in 2024. It's actually New Year's Eve when I'm doing this. So I'll see you next year, and Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye.